going to do tonight is I'm going to ask some questions of these gentlemen, questions that you prepared. I'm also going to throw in a few questions that I prepared. Hopefully we'll have time at the end. We have about 15, 20 minutes at the end, so you can ask some more questions of these gentlemen. Okay? That's the format. I'm going to ask you a few easy ones at first, just to get you warmed up. First one. Clint, when you interview a potential employee, what are you really looking for?
You know, well, good, it works. I'm interested in someone that's sitting across the table from me that has done their due diligence and they've learned about Black & Veatch and they're passionate about something in our field. I've participated in a lot of interviews where the person sitting across the table, and several of you I recognize as being people that I've interviewed for the SELF program. And the thing that is most engaging to me is when you demonstrate to the person that you're interviewing with that you're passionate about their company. And you have something that you immediately want to offer, something that you can do there and make a difference. Because the days of coming in and saying, you know, teach me something in 5 years and 10 years later I'll be good for you, those days are gone. You really have to come with you in your bag from the university with something that's valuable. And so I get excited when I'm doing an interview with somebody and they're interactive with me and they've got questions for me and they're prepared. And I've been in way too many where I just sit across the table from somebody and I end up doing all of the talking and they don't interact with me at all. So engage, engage, engage.
I remember one time Clint met with some students and said, know something about Black & Veatch before you come in the door. That's important. John, is a graduate degree necessary to be successful for an engineer in private practice?
Well, I think it's certainly an advantage. I did choose to finish my civil degree and go right into a graduate degree before I left, but when I was at Black & Veatch, the place was populated heavily with engineers that had come to practice and then went back to work on graduate degrees. And of course the campus in Kansas City now has enhanced that tremendously. I mean, it's, you pick different tracks when you get involved in an organization like Black & Veatch, and you stay in a technical track or you move into more of a management track. So I mean, there's cases to be made for advanced degrees in engineering, there's cases to be made for advanced degrees in business on top of your engineering degree. But there's plenty of time. I mean, as I said, I stayed right here and finished my graduate work, but there's plenty of time to make those decisions. The problem is life starts to change. You may find a mate, you may start having children. It just becomes problematic to find the time. I mean, you did it after leaving, and I didn't, but I think a graduate degree is advantageous.
Well, the most often told lie is checks in the mail. The second most often told lie is I'm going back to graduate school after I work a couple years. Clint, how important are oral and written communication skills to the success of an engineer?
Well, you know, if you're an engineer, you're selling something to somebody every day, whether that's your boss or whether that's the client, but you're selling something to somebody. And I know a lot of us went into engineering because we're introverted and we would prefer to just work technically on something, and maybe communications isn't our forte. But you really have to find a way to break through and communicate what it is that you know to somebody else. And I will also tell you that being the smartest person in the room on a subject matter isn't always the best thing, because if you're trying to explain something to somebody and they have no idea what you're talking about, and in the municipal sector of water, speaking to a mayor or a city councilman who knows absolutely nothing about what you're talking about, to start using acronyms and start talking over their head gets you nowhere. What you really need to do is take your message and simplify it and break it down into something very small sound bites that you know the person that you're communicating with will take that away. And I know it sounds silly, but you should always prepare yourself before you're going to go and have a conversation with somebody. You need to think proactively about the kinds of questions that might be asked of you, how you might respond. It's just as if you're doing a proposal presentation to a client. You have to be prepared for that. And the other thing I will tell you is when a client or a fellow engineer is working with you on something, if you have to say, I don't know the answer to that, that's probably one of the most empowering things that you can say, is that I don't know the answer to that, but I will go back, I will find an answer to that, and I'll come back to you with the answer. Because 9 times out of 10, people that are really sure about how they're responding on something, they find out later that they're not sure. And so if you don't know the answer, don't try and bluff your way through it. Make sure that you go back and research it and give them the right answer.
John, you distinguished yourself at Black & Veatch. What did you do to distinguish yourself so you can move up within the firm? What did they have to do to be successful in a company?
A whole lot of luck, a little knowledge. You got to be willing to step out. I mean, some examples. I started at Black & Veatch in 1973. In 1975, a list went around the office 3 times asking an engineer if they were interested in going to Iran to work on an oceanographic study. I went around 3 times. The third time, and nobody signed up. Third time it came around, I signed up. And I spent 2 years on the salt flats of Bandargah, Iran, running an oceanographic study, totally unprepared for it. I'm not an oceanographer, I'm not a benthic expert, I'm not an ichthyologist. But we hired a lot of good ones, and I ran that sucker for the better part of 2 years. I came back and I was asked if I'd be willing to go to Dallas, and I did. Moved my family to Dallas, spent 3 years in our office down there. And everybody has to make their own decisions about these things, but I think you have to be willing to step out, take opportunity. I spent a great deal of time one year trying to position one of our key guys to go to Raleigh, North Carolina, one of the great places in the country. We had owned an organization out there since the mid-'80s, and it was very successful. We were moving a lot of people out there. He turned me down because he would have been 1,000 miles from his in-laws' lake home. I never gave him another opportunity because you have to do some sacrificing if you're going to achieve the things you want to achieve. Clint took off and headed to an office outside of Kansas City, and go into this career with a desire to learn. One thing Americans lack is a lot of knowledge of what's going on in other parts of the world. And the beauty of going to a big organization is they function in other parts of the world, and there are opportunities to go and to learn. So step out, take a risk.
Yeah, be a risk taker. Good. Clint, what challenges did you face in the 10 years of working in Latin America and the Caribbean?
Oh, I'm not sure we have enough time. I'll tell you a couple of really key things that I learned working in Latin America was the employment of an advocate, the employment of someone who had equal standing to the highest person that I was contracting with within the country.
You're talking about a local?
Well, not necessarily. It just had to be someone that had to have standing. So in one particular instance, project work that we were doing in Argentina, it was a bank president in Miami who was from Argentina and had good close relationships with the people that were running the project. And the president of the country wanted a very successful project. But what we couldn't stand is we couldn't stand to pay graft to people bribes in order to do the work, because none of us were going to come back and spend time in a federal penitentiary. So in order to do a project, the word had to come from on high. This is not a group that you go and ask money from. This is not somebody that you bribe. And one of that was by having somebody on our team that had equal standing to the most significant person in the project on their side. We didn't use that to our advantage. We only used that to make sure that payments were processed, that work that we committed to do when we did it, that we were paid on time for the work that we did and the project was successful. So you could be the best engineer in the world, but if you didn't have some type of leverage, you could get caught up in delays and things that were outside of your control that wouldn't allow the project to move forward. The second thing I will tell you about doing work in Latin America is that it's not just about the language. How many of you in here can speak Spanish? How many of you, it's your native language? Is it your native language? What I learned being bilingual in Spanish is that I'm really good at Spanish, but if we're going to have a conversation about contracts, I sat with someone that was working with me who was a native speaker in the country, and we would listen to the meeting, and then I wouldn't agree or disagree necessarily with anything in the meeting, and then we'd take a break, and I would tell this person that was working with us what I thought I had heard. And when I told them what I thought I had heard, they said, that's not what they said at all. So you develop this confidence that you think you understand what they're saying and you don't. And so when anything is your second language, you need to make sure if you're doing engineering work that you've got a native speaker with you if you're going to attempt to communicate in their language. And the second thing I will tell you about a language is that it's not really just about the ability to communicate. You really have to understand the culture. And I'll give you similar examples to those that you may already be familiar with. If you're going to go and do work in Dallas, you better understand how Dallas operates. If you're going to go and do work in Chicago, you better understand how Chicago operates. So simply because you can speak another language does not prepare your backpack to make you successful in another country unless you truly understand what some of the issues that they're working on.
It's important to have a foreign language. Most of these engineering students probably haven't taken a foreign language because it's not required.
Tom, I used to say that I was in an engineering. I went into engineering so I wouldn't have to take social sciences or a language. And it was a mistake on both accounts. I think a second language, you know, it's a great big world, and there are great opportunities for all of you that aren't necessarily going to require going outside the country. But you've got the disadvantage of both of us having worked offshore for a good bit of our career, and it's a wonderful perspective. If you have an opportunity, you should learn another language.
We opened up the office in Miami, and I was down there by myself. And that evening, I did the drive-through McDonald's off of Red Road, just south of Miami International Airport. And I drove up to the drive-through, and the person on the other side said, "¿Qué quiere para comer?" And I said, "Yo quiero una comida número 2 con papas fritas y una Coca-Cola." So my first day in Miami, I ordered my dinner in Spanish. So you don't have to leave the United States to need to have the need to speak another language. It's not just about doing work there. It's about the ability to communicate with people here in another language to be able to demonstrate empathy. So I'm not real sure how you can be successful without understanding global cultures and languages. You don't have to be proficient at them. People get that, but you do need to try and understand them.
Just curious, how many people in this room have studied abroad? All right, look at that. That's important. John, you have 2 degrees from KU. You've been working with KU for a long time on advisory board and stuff like that. What changes would you like to see in our education system?
You know, Tom, I go back to the days of T-squares and dumping levels.
Me too.
So I'm not sure I'm qualified to talk about how it can be better. I'm really mesmerized by engineering education today. The opportunities that are available to you through this program and obviously many other good programs around the country are overwhelming. Surveying, I'm on the board of a regional engineering company, and surveying is one of our biggest businesses. And most engineering firms have gotten out of it and hire the service. It's not only one of our biggest businesses, it's one of our most lucrative businesses. So, you know, getting too far away from some of these basic things is problematic, but I think the education that you're providing is probably great.
Do you know right now only 1/3 of civil engineering programs teach surveying? I'm an old guy. I
still think
Is it still a part of the civil program here?
right now it is, yes.
But you're using all kinds of electronic equipment.
yes.
You drive a surveying truck around the country now, around the city, and you're risking hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of loss if you have an accident or somebody steals your truck. It didn't used to be that way.
There was one question on here that kind of intrigued me. Clint, it says on your bio that you are a proactive supporter of critical human infrastructure. What in the heck is that?
It's a distinction. When I say infrastructure, you say,
Water.
well, God bless
Highway.
you. You say roads. I spend enough time around engineers. When somebody says infrastructure, it's synonymous with roads. But Black and Beach, we don't do roads. We do everything water, we do everything energy, we do everything telecommunications and security. And so we adopted a philosophy to start speaking, instead of just about infrastructure, we talk about critical human infrastructure, just so that that question that just got asked gets asked. That's the simple answer.
Okay.
John, how can some of these students develop leadership skills in the university or after they get out as young engineers on jobs? I think you answered it a little bit. You said take risks, but
Yeah, I think take risks. Look for opportunity to take leadership roles, and it can be in your organization or it can be in the community. Lots of engineers stay in a technical track. Lots of engineers, head into apply their engineering into management tracks. There are different ways to get to leadership talent. Most good organizations offer leadership development programs. Some leadership is learned and some leadership is natural. But I think looking for opportunity, stepping out, doing things you're not necessarily comfortable with. And you'll get lots of opportunities to do things you're not comfortable with. Going to a run was not a comfortable experience, but I learned an awful lot about guiding people. It was a unique experience that I took advantage of.
John, I saw on your resume that you are the director of several organizations. You serve on several boards. Is that important for an engineer?
Well, no, it's not. My career has been interesting, to say the least. When I was at Black and Beach, I was on every community board you could find, including the police commission. And I tell you one thing, moving to England for 7 years allowed me to come off of a lot of databases, and when I came back, I haven't been asked to be involved with anything. But what I have enjoyed is, as I've gotten well into my career, is opportunities to apply my engineering skills doing other things. And I do serve on a number of different public company boards, 2 mining companies, and I like geology, and civil engineering isn't that far removed, so I got opportunities. I was lucky to meet people long ago in my career that ended up leading me to board opportunities. I'm on the board of the Federal Home Loan Bank because of a relationship I made in Seattle 20 years ago. And I'm involved with this, I mentioned a regional engineering firm that I've been involved with for about 8 years now, which I've been fortunate. But no, is it critical to it? No, heck no. For me, it's been stimulating. It's a business model I'd recommend to anybody, but no, it's not critical.
should young engineers get involved in ASME, ASCE, AICHE, IEEE right out of college?
I think so, and sometimes in college.
Well, I hope they're involved. If they're in the SELF program, they're involved in their local.
I think those are vital institutions to.
I think they're vital because you make contacts with other young engineers right out of college, and 30 years down the road, you're going to have friends in high places.
Yeah, you're involved up to your eyeballs.
Yeah, there's a lot of that I'm doing right now with the American Council of Engineering Companies. I'm the senior vice chair there, and one of the things I really enjoy about that is that you get to hear other CEOs and people that are operating major businesses what their day-to-day issues are. But I'm a little bit different in the sense that I spent an awful lot of time early in my career with ASCE, American Water Works Association, Water Environment Federation. And I will tell you that one of the things that I learned, although you have some great collaboration opportunities with people that are doing the same things, I felt after a while that I was preaching to the choir. And if you really want to preach the gospel, you got to go out and find people that need to hear what we do. So if we're going to talk about your ability to communicate, it's very comfortable to be part of these organizations. But you need to go and find organizations that need to hear our message. And maybe the most rewarding things I've been doing as part of the Director of State and Local Government Affairs is to participate in the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the National League of Cities and the National Association of Counties and the International City and County Managers Association, because those are all the people that are buying my municipal services, and they know nothing about our business. They make decisions, big monetary decisions every day about what we get to do, and we've got to start impacting those people. So yes, you've got to be a part of your technical organization to grow and to meet other people and to learn new things, but you also need to find organizations where you as an engineer are going to impact society in a group of people that don't have the same skill sets that you do.
Would either of you recommend that engineers get involved with public offices? We have a professor in architectural engineering / civil engineering, Bob Lyon, who is a state senator. That good, get involved with local government? Or is it better to stay out of it?
You know, I spent 8 years on the Blue Valley School District School Board, which is an elected position, and those that were city council members and mayors and state legislators told me they thought I was crazy, but I wouldn't give up those 8 years for anything. I found it extremely, I didn't ask to be on the school board, I just participated in the school because my kids were there, and I kind of got drafted into service. So I really don't like politicking, I don't like going door to door, I don't like convincing people that I'm the right person to pick. So that part of politics I really don't like. But the opportunity to learn about something, make a good decision, stick to that decision, and follow through, I think is something we really lack in politics. And a lot of engineers have that skill. They'll study, they'll find the answer, they'll move forward with it, they'll stick to it. So the kinds of skills that we're trained with make us exceptional political leaders, but there's very few of us that are in it. There are currently, I'm not sure there are any in the Kansas State Legislature that are certainly not registered professional engineers. And that I find that so interesting because they regulate our industry. We don't look for it, we probably should. It's not our nature to do it, but as John has suggested, finding something that's outside of your comfort zone, if any of you were inclined to lead and take that opportunity, you really could make a huge difference in our industry if you decided to step up and become an elected official.
I would not encourage any engineer to get into politics, just in general. But I think getting involved in community activities, I think getting involved with a professional organization is a great way to learn leadership skills. You know, and if you're led into a political track, that's fine. I have long said that engineers can be anything. I had two roommates that got engineering degrees. One's an orthopod in Topeka, and the other's a pulmonary specialist. I've got engineer friends who practiced law for years, banking friends who started with engineering backgrounds. I just think it's a way of thinking, it's a way of structuring problem solving that I think is vital. And I think it can lead you anywhere. And you'll all be led in very different directions. But getting involved in these kinds of things is a way to develop your leadership skills.
You're both registered professional engineers.
I'm a chartered engineer in the UK as well.
Wow. Okay. I know we got civils, archies, and mechanicals that are encouraged to take the fundamentals of engineering exam. How important is it for a a young engineer to be registered as a professional engineer?
I think it's a must.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, but we're civils.
Well, I can remember taking my EIT exam with open windows the day Jim Ryan broke the 4-minute mile down in the Kansas relays, and I had to take this stupid test with my SR50 and a 50-foot extension cord so I could be sure that I didn't run out of power. I think registration is vital if you're going to achieve any levels of authority as an engineer, as a manager, to get registered. Now, maybe that's just a civil's perspective, but
Yeah, I think licensure is just like advanced degrees. I think your willingness to participate in the process, take the test, become registered, whether you need to as a part of your profession or not, is another step in demonstrating that you have a skill in that area. You know, an interesting thing about it is that taking a test and passing it, and the fundamentals of engineering or EIT or whatever, when I took that test, I barely passed it. Then I went and worked at Black & Veatch for a few years, and I took my PE exam, and I aced it. And I'm really proud of the fact that I'm a professional engineer. That's one of the things that I hang on my wall and I'm proud about. And I've got my licenses up, and it's important for me to keep my license. And I haven't sealed or stamped a drawing in the last 15 years. But yet it is still really important to me to be licensed, because I think it's a standard in our profession that demonstrates that you're skilled and capable of doing the work that's being asked of you.
I was on the board, so I think it's important.
I knew the answer you were looking for.
If you have your PE license, does it help you to move up within your organization?
Yeah, I think, you know, if your expectation is that you're going to do it and then you're going to move up in the organization because you did it, that's probably the wrong way to look at it. But I think anymore, having it is kind of one of those necessary steps in order to advance. I think at the time that our father started, he didn't get a master's, and it wasn't necessary for him to move up within the company. But when John started at the company, you were unique when you had your master's degree. There weren't a lot of them there. When I came along, you practically had to. I mean, if you had a career where you were going to be a project manager and lead, someone had to stamp those drawings, and he was going to be that person. So, you know, you had to do it.
we're clearly giving you a consulting perspective. I mean, a lot of these people go into industrial applications and other things where it may or may not be anywhere near as critical, but in a consulting application, it's vital to advance.
Whether you're a mechanical engineer or civil engineer are key. The other disciplines have industrial immunity. They don't have to be registered professional engineers to work in aerospace, chemical engineering, electrical engineering. Okay. You two guys are brothers. Did you have any family pressure to go into engineering?
You know, you're going to KU, you're going to be an engineer. You know, I say that facetiously. I could have done anything.
It was done in a loving way.
Gone anyway. But yeah, I mean, it was just in our blood. So we headed that way. And as I said, I mean, I encourage every young person I ever run into, if they show any propensity for engineering, to get an engineering degree, because it's a great baseline for anything you choose to do in life.
That's actually one of the questions a student.
No, wait, I want to answer further the becoming an engineer one, because I think it's really material for the both of us to, I think both of us, you know, at a certain point in our life, our great-grandfather was one of the first 3 professors here at the University of Kansas. And he taught Greek and Latin in the day that the university opened in 1866 is when the class started, 1865 is when it was founded. And that's a huge amount of pride. But for our father, that became the litmus test. You could go anywhere you want to go to school, but if you want help paying for your education, you're going to the University of Kansas. Now, none of us ever regretted that, but there was that kind of pressure that was going to happen. And so as a young person growing up, I said to myself, and I suspect John did too, you know, I'm probably not going to go to the University of Kansas. I'll probably go somewhere else, and never quite figured out how that was going to happen. Really glad I did, but had those thoughts about somewhere else that I was going to go. I said I would never come to the University of Kansas and join the same fraternity that my father and my brother, and then I did. I said I'm not going to do that, and I did that. And it was one of the greatest experiences that I ever had. I then went into the School of Engineering, said I'm not going to be an engineer, I'm an extrovert. I'm going to go into something else, I am not going to be an engineer. And Tom can tell you, I fought it the whole way through. If it weren't for Bob Smith, I probably would not be an engineer today, because I fought engineering every day, every hour when I came here. This is just not the way things need to be. Always trying to change something, but not going to be an engineer. And for goodness sake, I am not going to go and work at Black & Veatch. And I've been there for 30 years. So, you know, those things that you say, those things that you work towards, that you think the grass is greener somewhere else, you don't follow a path, you want to be different. I think all of those things are natural, but I think at the end of the day, I think it was kind of meant to be the way it happened. And now I'm so glad that I am a very different engineer in my role at Black & Veatch, because it allows me to communicate and do something that is really valuable to Black & Veatch, to go out and tell somebody what it is that we do to a group of people that know nothing about what we do. So I'm here for a purpose, even though we might have fought it along the way.
Clint, the students have a specific question for you. Can you tell us more about how you became a member of the Edison Awards Steering Committee?
Yeah, it's a really fun story, actually. It was an offshoot of being on the Blue Valley School District School Board. There's a program in Blue Valley School District called the Center for Advanced Professional Studies. And the program, the Center for Advanced Professional Studies, is an independent. Have you all been through it? Are you products of the CAPS program? I see smiling back here. Are you familiar with it?
My CAPS Stuff project is actually working with it.
Great. And so while I was on the school board, we started the CAPS program. We wanted an individualized learning program. We wanted academics and curriculum to surround passion. We wanted students to come into the CAPS building and find out what it is they wanted to know, and then wrap curriculum around what it is that they wanted to know, instead of feeding them curriculum with the expectation that by learning that, they would then apply it to their passion. It was kind of a reverse model. Using that concept, CAPS was submitted for an Edison Award while I was there, and they received an Edison Award. And if you go to edisonawards.com, you'll see a whole series of different things that are recognized. Last year they recognized Elon Musk from Tesla, and they have some really innovative products and services and products. So last year I went to speak at Edison Awards. I was invited to come and speak about business and education collaboration, how business needs to get better at coming into the classroom and knowing what the teacher is teaching, so that they could advance the cause of the teacher while they're there, instead of just coming in and talking about what they know best. And likewise, how teachers need to do a better job of getting out into the businesses and find out what it is that they practically should be teaching with their curriculum. And there's a great program at the CAPS program in Blue Valley, where there are actually more business partners there than there are students in the program. And who would have thought a public school system could attract so many businesses that wanted to partner with high school kids to help them solve their problems? So it was a great model. When I left, after doing the presentation, there was a lot of questions and interest. This last year, they asked me to serve a 2-year term on the steering committee for the Edison Awards, and so I get the opportunity to review some 350 innovative products this year, some of which will be recognized for an award. So it's a really exciting thing that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but I really enjoy it. We're going to go to New York this year and celebrate at least 100 innovators.
Before we open up to questions and answers, did either of you or both of you had some last words you'd like to tell these students?
I think I'm interested in hearing their questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've covered stuff. I'm still getting engaged.
Okay, Q&A time. Questions?
Clint, you talked earlier about understanding culture and language barriers, especially in a large company. Do you have any advice on how to actually overcome those once you are faced with them?
Give me an example. Do you mean culture barriers within the same language, or you mean?
Usually, like with a different country, like the company I worked for, they had a section in India, and the group in India was working with the group in California. So there were a lot of just cultural differences the way they worked versus the way that we worked.
You know, probably the best advice I can give you is, if you've ever seen a couple of dogs come up to each other and one becomes passive to the other because they know the other one's maybe more aggressive, and that's how they meet with each other. I've found some real success in working in other countries. I've been to every country south of the United States, the Caribbean, and Central and South America, except Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, and Bolivia. And in every one of them, the approach that I've taken is one of, I don't understand your country, I don't understand your culture, I'm here to learn, help me understand. I don't come in on a white horse with a white hat thinking I'm going to come in and solve all of their problems and I'm the smartest person in the room. I come in with, I don't know your country, I don't know your customs, I don't know your culture. Help me better understand so that we can both be more successful. So I think it's really one of empathy. It's one of trying to understand why they have the problem to begin with, how to solve the problem, and maybe most importantly is really trying to get at the root of what the problem is. Sometimes the biggest problem in being successful on a project is not your project at all. It's something else that's going on with the government or something like that, and trying to understand how you can be successful and work around that particular issue is really important. And I could go on and cite work that we've done in Chile, Argentina, and Brazil in that particular instance. We're learning from them what the biggest elephant in the room really wasn't what I thought was the biggest elephant in the room.
Next question. Over here.
So working in your industry for 30 years, I'm sure that you've seen design capabilities been enormously accelerated by software. And computations that used to be done by engineers by hand can now be done by CAD software very, very quickly. So I'm curious if, as the field has progressed, do you feel that engineers are, I suppose, in some way hampered by not necessarily doing those same calculations? Do they lose some perspective when they have software perform for them? Or do you feel that software will always simply be accelerating the pace of design and that engineers are consistently able to keep all of the, I suppose, design ideas in their head?
You know, I just heard a speaker, I don't know if any of you are familiar with X Prize, or a gentleman by the name of Peter Diamandis, but I would suggest that you look at YouTube or TED Talks and look up Peter Diamandis. He and some people started something called Singularity University. And he came and spoke to Black & Veatch, to our leadership team, and one of the things that he said was the acceleration of technology and the acceleration of knowledge is growing at such an exponential rate that if you're not careful, you can become irrelevant. And I took that and I brought that back to the executive committee of the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we're now talking about, are we approaching a day where we're doing engineering less engineering? Are we going to, are small and mid-sized engineering companies, in order to be competitive with larger engineering companies, are they going to build tools that will allow them to do the same thing with 5 people that other firms that might take them 100 people to do it? Is there somebody in Silicon Valley that's developing a technology that's making the engineering that we do automated? And the real question becomes, we in the consulting profession anyway, and in engineering, we think that our growth, the number of people that come and work for us, grows along with our making more money and doing more things. And I think there are more and more tools now that are enabling fewer and fewer of us to do more and more. And that's why what you're doing is really valuable. And what I said about the interview process is, I want to hear from you what you can bring to me today. I want to know what you do that the guy that's been here for 30 years doesn't know how to do better and faster. you need to be able to bring that with you in your backpack, because that's really where we're headed. And the only other thing that I'll say about that, and I think this will hit the heartstrings of the professors in the room, is that if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. And one of the things that concerns me about technology is that if you don't understand the principle by which it's performing the function for you, you'll get a wrong answer and you'll never know you got the wrong answer. For those of us that still know how to operate, a slide rule and used paper and pencil and did a lot of erasing when we did hydraulic profiles, we know when we got it right or wrong because we had to go through it 100 times to do it. I'm not arguing you need to do it 100 times, but when you bring it to somebody that's doing quality assurance, quality control, you better be able to demonstrate to them that you know how that software made that calculation. It can do it faster for you, it can do it iteratively for you, it may even do it smarter than you, but you really have to try and understand what the software is doing for you so that you can give assurances to your clients and the people that you work for that in fact it's doing the right thing.
Another question. Come on, I'll flunk you.
You're not a threat anymore.
You both have moved from like the technical side into the management side. Through your years of experience, have you developed a preference in the two sides? And what advice would you give to someone who's trying to go into the management side?
Management versus engineering. Your side. You started engineering, progressed into management. Which is best? Or how do you know which way to go?
I don't think there's a best. I think any organization needs strong leadership on the business side and strong leadership on the technical side. I think your propensity, your skills are going to lead you the right direction. I wouldn't worry about it going into an organization. I mean, you're going to inherently start in any organization on the technical side, and then you're going to display your unique skills, whether it's communication, whether it's leadership, whether it's having bilingual capability, whether it's driven to a technical bent. I think you'll figure that out fairly early in the process. But there's not a best. It's absolutely vital. Both of them are absolutely vital in any organization you're going to find.
I have an engineer that worked for me for about 10 years, and I kept telling him he was so good at what he was doing that we really should try and move him up the ladder into project management and project direction and a leadership role, because he was so good with people, so good with understanding it. He kept pushing back at me and he kept saying, there is so much more I want to learn. I want to do this next project because it has an aeration basin in it, or I want to do this project because it has sludge dewatering, and I want to do this one because it has ozone or it has membrane technologies. So this constant desire to learn more in the engineering profession kept propelling him into different opportunities. And he's a perfect example of what we've done to try and create a technical track for those that just want to learn more. They want to be pressed on every engineering opportunity. So I couldn't ever convince him to going into a management side, but he's been very successful on the technical side. There was a place for him to grow. I would say one of my greatest strengths as the Director of State and Local Government Affairs right now is that most of the people that are colleagues of mine at U.S. Conference of Mayors and National League of Cities do not have degrees in engineering. They have degrees in sociology or something like that, and they've been on the Hill and they've worked somebody's campaign. So they understand these people, but they don't understand something that they can sell. So the greatest value that I have is when I go and talk to somebody about water, I know water. So I don't have to say, let me bring somebody in that's going to talk to you about water, or let me bring somebody in that's going to talk to you about renewable energy, or let me bring somebody in that's going to talk to you about telecommunications. Because I'm an engineer and because I work for an engineering company, I know at least enough to make me dangerous. So a lot of these people don't have that. They build relationships and then they bring people in to tell them the answers. But the opportunity to engage them in a discussion about something that you know about, that will never leave you once you're an engineer. Whether you're leading a company or whether you're doing something completely different, it sticks with you. He asked a question when you had said that you wouldn't recommend that any engineer go into politics. He wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on why you think that.
Okay, that was probably more of an emotional statement than a fact-based statement. I'm not very happy with the leadership of our politicians in our country at the moment, so it was probably just a gut reaction. I think politics is vital to this country. I mean, there are doctors in Congress, I don't know of an engineer in Congress. I really don't. Everybody's career is going to lead them different places, and engineering prepares you for anything. If that, Clint has gotten involved in elected positions in the community. His skills have led him there, and he's been very successful at that. So chalk it off as an emotional reaction that probably doesn't have much merit.
And I've been approached to run for a couple of things, and I've evaluated those opportunities. If you become an elected official, do you stop doing your profession for a while? Do you lose some placement in line at your company? Does your company support you doing that? And I've decided no. And I will tell you another reason, and it's maybe really more akin to John, is that I spend a lot of time around state legislators, and frankly, I would have a lot of trouble working with most of them. I just don't find a lot of them to be terribly reasonable people. I don't see them seeking solutions. I see a lot of them seeking problems and or opportunities for themselves. And that just isn't how I operate. And so that's harder for me, because I work for a company whose motto is building a world of difference, and every day I go out and try and make a difference somewhere in the world. And if I really felt like I could do it with politics and I could make a difference somewhere, then I would, but I'm analytical enough that I look at it from every direction, and at the end of the thing I go, maybe not such a good idea for me.
I've got another reason. I've approached my wife a couple of times about possibly running for an office, and she said, no way. So I did. Another question over here. Yes, sir.
You both clearly do things outside of just your career with Black & Veatch and later once you left Black & Veatch. But I was wondering, since you both spent a considerable amount of time in a single company, whether you feel like it's important to kind of see what other companies do and work for other companies, or whether it's important to really commit yourself and spend a lot of time with a single industry.
I think it works. I honestly think it works out the way it works out. I have got a 40-year-old son who got his civil degree here and went on and got an MBA. He's now working for a bank. He happens to be building a $400 million skyscraper for them in Pittsburgh, so he's applying both his financial and his engineering talent. But it is where you're going to be led. Now, I have to say that when I got out of school and went into engineering, that people stayed where they went for a lot longer. I mean, I was with Black & Veatch for 27 years. I turned 50 and I said, hey, I'd like to do something else. And I was a vice chairman of the company, and I quit and moved to England and worked for a British group for a number of years before I came back and started doing my own thing. So there's not a good answer to that. I know the propensity in the generations that have followed me has been to do more moving around, look for different opportunities, than was the propensity in my generation, and maybe it started changing in yours. But no, I think if you join a big organization that's got lots and lots of opportunity to move, different disciplines, opportunities to be different places and do different kinds of things, you may be able to be satisfied for a career or most of a career. If you start with a small organization and you find that you're growing beyond that, you may choose to move around. There is not a right answer.
I do have kind of an open door policy that when someone's contemplating leaving Black and Beach and going somewhere else, that people know that it's okay to come in and talk to me about it, because we can have an honest discussion about them being somewhere else. Because I think sometimes the things about moving every few years, one, it gives you different experiences. And as John said, in a big company, you ought to be seeking those different experiences within the big company. I mean, that's your 3 to 5 year growth opportunity in a big company, is trying to find out different things that they do. Because that makes you nimble, that makes you, you understand the bigger part of the company. So as you grow in it, you know more about it. But some of the people come in and they say, well, I've got an offer from company XYZ. It's more money, it's a better title, and it appears that I'll be doing essentially the same thing. So we start having a conversation about, you know, are they attracting you at the upper end of the pay scale within, you know, you have a pay scale for the, you know, the type and grade of work that you do, and in order to attract you, are they paying you the upper end of the pay scale? Which means you have to advance to the next position in order to get a significant increase. So a lot of companies will do that. Instead of paying you down here, they'll offer you right up here. And then you don't have that growth opportunity like you think that you did. They'll give you a bigger title. Sometimes giving somebody a bigger title and an expectation is a false promise. You may think that you're prepared to go in and do something different, and some people are, but you have to have that conversation with them that says, if they give you a project manager responsibility and you haven't done that before, do you understand enough about how the business works in order to be effective at doing that? And do you have a growth opportunity within this company? And I would say, you know, I have a pretty good track record, and I don't try and coach people back into Black and Beach. We just have a good, healthy conversation of things that they might be overlooking. And at the end of the day, if they decide that that's a good career move for them, then you say, great, go do that. But maybe the most important thing that I've learned is always leave the door open. Congratulations, take a great opportunity going to work for them. And when you're ready to come back and talk to us again about another opportunity, I want to make sure that you give us a call. That's really important.
I would always let people leave and come back twice. Third time they couldn't come back.